how to pre-sale your product or service. True entrepreneurship is being able to create a demand for something even when it's not ready, and pre-selling it to be able to see if the thing is a viable product or it's a viable service that people are actually interested in, who are willing to give you that hard-earned dollars. When I started my digital agency, we started with web design. So in this story, in this book, I shared on how I reached out to a number of my friends. I specifically mentioned one friend of mine. We asked them about their current website because we realized that their website was terrible. Rather than we going to say, hey, are you going to buy a website from us? What we did is we created a sample template and we sent it to them to say, hey, this is what we are willing to do for you. And this is the problem it's going to help you solve with your current website. That sold that client, and that sold so many other clients, because we didn't create the product, but we created something that looked like the product, or we created a promise of the product, and it made the person see the vision of what we're trying to solve, and it paid us. Think about real estate, for example. If you think about it, many of the new houses that are being built are actually not built. People sell you on the design, the site plan, the blueprint, all the different things, and you pay them money as a deposit for them to go and build the house. And most of the time when they finish building it, or even sometimes you finish paying for it before they build it. So this is what I mean by pre-sale. I'm going to teach you something on pre-sale and how it works. There are 5 steps to effectively pre-sale your product or service. And I'm going to read it from the book. The first thing you need to do in order to pre-sale your product or service, you need to be able to define your product or service. You need to clearly define what your product or service is and who exactly is it for. When I started my digital agency, I just didn't reach out to everybody. I reached out to entrepreneurs, startups, and small business owners that I thought would need our professional web design services. The initial step of pre-selling your product or service is to clearly define what it does. You need to be crystal clear on, this is what my product does and the solution it offers. This will help potential customers to understand and become more interested in what you're doing. Step 2, research your target market. You need to speak to about 25 to 50 people, and everybody knows at least 25 or 50 people. From your family members to your friends to your colleagues from work to total strangers, you need to research your target market to know if it's a good fit. If you don't understand the market, you spend a lot of time and resources on something that actually isn't growing over the years, and you'll be wondering why your business is not growing, because that market is actually not growing. So you need to do your research to find out, why are people looking for this thing, and how much do they pay, and what are the profit margins. Do your market research to find out who are your target audience, what they are looking for, and ask them the right questions in order to help solve the problems that they currently have, and determine how much they are willing to pay if you solved their problem or you brought a solution to their pain points. Step 3 is ask them the right question. So you need to be able to sample 25 to 50 people from your target audience. And usually if you do this by Zoom, it's more effective than you doing it over the phone. Why? Because if you do it by Zoom, you can read their body language. You can ask certain questions and you can tell from somebody's facial expression that they're uncomfortable. Or you ask a question that pisses somebody off, or you ask a question that makes somebody excited. The body language of a person says a lot. So that's why Zoom interviews are very effective, because even if you missed something, you can go back and rewatch it and you can say, I see what happened over here. I asked them this and all of a sudden they just came to light. Or I asked them this and they just said, hey, I'm busy, I have to go now. So you'll be able to see a trend when you ask people the right questions. So you might ask, what is the right questions you ask somebody? I put some examples in here. So one of the questions you can potentially ask people in order to get them to answer some of the questions you have is, what are the biggest challenges or frustrations you have with XYZ? Like, what are the biggest frustrations you have with web design? What are the biggest frustrations you have with your car? What are the biggest frustrations you have with your podcast microphone? What are the biggest challenges or frustrations you have with content creation on social media? It can be anything. And once you phrase the question this way, people might start to open up to tell you some of the things that they have frustrations with. Now, this is key. When you ask them questions like this, don't stop there. Do a follow-up and do something like, why? What's the reason? And go deeper to be able to get the core of exactly what they mean by what they're saying. Because sometimes people give you surface level information, but they don't really dig deep unless you actually push them to dig deep. So you need to be able to not push them, but steer them in the right direction. That way they're able to give you more information about what they actually mean. Now you can also ask a follow-up question like, what do you mean by that? To help them give you an honest answer. So when they say the thing like why, you ask them, they tell you why. It's like, what do you mean by that? Like, I'm very curious. Like, what exactly do you mean by that? And people are going to go deeper and deeper. The whole goal is to get them to go deep. That way you can get a clear understanding to exactly what they mean. Step 4, listen to their pain points. This is critical. The goal of this interview is not just to be able to talk. You need to be able to listen to the things that they are saying is frustrating to them. You need to be able to pen these things down in very meticulous detail, and don't forget these things, because this is where you're going to build your business. You listen to the pain point of the person, then you're like, So let's say I spoke to a number of friends of mine and I spoke to some acquaintances, and I kept on asking them that, hey, do you currently have a website? If not, why? And if they do have the website, why don't they use it? What are some of the frustrations they currently have with their web development agency they're using, or the person who is managing their pages? Based on this information, I can hand it over to my team to say, hey, these are some of the pain points and frustrations people have. Whatever the pain point, you're going to start seeing a trend. Listen to their pain points. An example to help you to be able to get more out of this is you ask a question like, what do you feel you're struggling with the most with XYZ? So what is this you feel like you're struggling the most when it comes to web design or writing your book or your podcast equipment? And people are going to tell you a lot of their pain points and the frustrations they're currently having with a thing. Then we move on to the 5th step. And the 5th step is offer them a simple solution or make them a pre-sale offer. So the whole goal is to be able to gather the right information and ask a question like, if I solve this problem for you, would you pay for it, and for how much? If I solve this problem for you, would you pay for it? And people say yes. Like, how much are you willing to pay for it? Gauge and give you an idea. The whole goal is to gather all this information and make a pre-sale offer at the end. A ton of people were asking me questions on social media via DMs. They'll send me messages and say, hey, I want to start a business. I don't have money. Or I want to start a business. I work a 9 to 5. I don't have the time. Or they'll tell me that, oh, I don't know the skill to be able to use to start a business. I don't know my passion, all these different things. So I started to interview people and figure out what is the thing they need. And most people don't know the steps they need to take to start a business. And that is why I wrote this. But how did I sell it? This book sold hundreds of copies even before it was ready. I pre-sold this book. How did I do it? After I interviewed people and I spoke to them, on my birthday, I came out one day and I held a cover of this book out. The book was actually already. It was actually wrapped. It was a journal that was wrapped. And I held it and said, hey, I'm writing this book. You can pre-order it over here. And when it's ready, I'll let you know. And I had a ton of people who went to pre-order it. I wanted to share this process with you to be able to realize that you don't actually need a product or service in order for you to start making sales. Back then, before I wrote this book, before I had my digital agency, I used to pre-sell stuff online. I used to sell smartphones. And how we used to do it is I found a guy who had a ton of smartphones he was selling. And I spoke to him to say, hey, if I buy it from you, are you going to give me a little discount? It's like, yes, if you're able to help me sell it, I'll give you a little discount. So I took pictures of the phones, the ones I know he had a lot online. I took pictures of them, posted it. Anytime somebody saw any of my ads and they wanted to buy a smartphone, all I did is I picked it up from him, sold it to the person, took my margin off, gave him his money. I didn't have any inventory, but I was able to sell until I was able to put enough money together to buy smartphones myself to sell. This is how I was doing it. So you have to be creative. If you feel like you don't have enough money, or you feel like I want to be able to test the market before I dump a lot of money on doing this thing, make sure you have a pre-sale system in place. That way you know that people are interested, because people are putting their money where their mouth is, or their mouth where their money is. One of them, you know what I'm talking about. So if you want more information on our pre-sale, all is in my new book, 100K Secrets. Go get it. I'm hoping that this information helps you. If you're an aspiring entrepreneur or you're a business owner who's looking to be able to create a product or service, but you're not sure if the market is ready for it, use this pre-sale system in order to get it to the market without you breaking the bank. And before I forgot, you can get a free sample of 100K Secrets. If you go to @KimBuari on any of my social media handles, you see the link to be able to download a free sample of 100K Secrets. This is my little gift to you, and I hope you take advantage and enjoy it before I change my mind. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video, please go ahead to like and subscribe so you don't miss my next video. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.